Joining us now on the Coco Shack hotline is Rob Dauster of NBCSportsTalk.com and also ballingisahabit.net. Rob, thanks for taking the time out of your day to join Quince in the Morning this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
So before we get down to the nitty-gritty of talking about the ins and outs of this young college basketball season, I want to ask you a few questions, as we like to do here on Quince in the Morning, about a little background information on you. How did you develop a passion? You watch a ton of games, so obviously you have to have a deep passion for college basketball. How did that start with you?
I played at a little school up in Poughkeepsie when I was in college, and when I graduated, I ended up working a really, really boring desk job, and I kind of figured that, I wasn't really ready to, give the dream up and become a 9-to-5 working stiff. So while I was sitting there answering about 5 phone calls a day, 8 hours a day, I started running a website, and it eventually, got a little bit of traction, and so I quit that, and I picked up a gig bartending on the side, and I just started doing that full time.
Yep. So you have ballingisahabit.net. So you started that while you're doing your day job. Am I correct with saying that?
Yeah. I didn't have anything to do, so I figured I might as well write about college basketball. I was posting on message boards and all that kind of stuff, so I figured I might as well just put it all in one space, and it caught on a little bit. And after about 2 seasons of really doing it seriously, I latched on with NBC, and that kind of led to everything else. And that happened, I guess, about 2 years ago now. Last year was really the first season that we did the whole year with NBC.
Yep. You mentioned that you write for NBC Sports or NBC College Basketball Talk.com. So what is a day for you where there's college basketball? And I'm sure that I believe you spend the entire night just flipping between college basketball games and tweeting and talking about it. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, it depends on how many games are on and what's going on. Like this week, it's pretty slow. But, on like a typical Wednesday night or Saturday afternoon, I'll have, the one game on TV, and then I can bring up like 3 or 4 streams on my laptop, depending on how many games are going on. I normally have, I got like probably 60 hours worth of games just recorded on my DVR.
Wow.
In case I ever want to go back and watch anything, just if you want to, if it's like a lazy Sunday afternoon and nothing's really going on, you can just kind of flip on a game and try to catch up with someone that you haven't really seen much. Because the most difficult thing is being able to watch some of these teams from across the country. Like, I don't get the Pac-12 network where I am, which makes it really, really difficult, if I want to try to learn about Oregon. So any time that Oregon or Colorado or another Pac-12 team is on ESPN or, one of those channels, I record the game just so I can go back and actually sit down and watch it and try to get a feel for them, because just as informative as sites like KenPom and looking at stats are, it's not the same thing as actually sitting down and watching the team play a full game 2 or 3 times.
Absolutely. And before we really get talking about the scene of St. John's basketball, what we have coming up on deck, talk about the Big East, and then over in the overall picture. We asked this to most of our guests. We asked Adam Schefter, John Butchergross, all the guys that we've had on here, or had the pleasure of having on here before. So, not going to exempt you. What do you do to get away? If you said 60 hours of DVR footage of college basketball. What do you do to kind of step away from that and just kind of unwind and de-stress, or do something else, get your mind off of just basketball? What do you do to get away?
Well, I turn my phone off and I close my computer, basically, just to try to unplug from everything. At some point, it's kind of difficult just to step away. You really got to make a conscious effort, because if I have access to my Twitter feed, and I have access to basically all the information that I'm going to need, so I just kind of turn everything off and I don't know, like go out and get dinner with my fiance or something like that, or turn on FIFA and sit there and kind of try to ignore everything for a while.
We're talking with Rob Dauster here on Quince in the Morning. You can follow him on Twitter at Rob Dauster, Dauster. He writes for ballingisahabit.net, and he also writes for NBC's College Basketball Talk. Here he joins us on the Coco Shack hotline, as always, on Quince in the Morning. So now we're going to move to the hometown Johnnies, the St. John's Red Storm. So far, 7-3 on the season. They had a disappointing trip out to San Francisco. They came home. They got a win against Fordham at the Garden. What have you seen out of St. John's today, in Europe, out of St. John's so far this season, in your opinion? And do you think that they could have a chance of making a run at being a bubble team?
Well, they're a ton of fun to watch just because there's so many athletes up and down that line. If they get up and down the floor, Bekba is just, he's something else around the rim. And you got guys like Sir Dominic Pointer and Jakar Sampson, and, they're always liable to, make a Sports Center highlight up there. So, it's a really entertaining team to watch. I think they're still probably a year or two away from really being a tournament team because, they're not really disciplined and they have some shot selection issues. And as good of a scorer as D'Angelo Harrison is, I don't know if he's ready to kind of be the leader of a team. So I think they're going to win some games they're probably not supposed to win.
Right.
And then, like they did against San Francisco, they're probably going to lose some games in the Big East that they shouldn't lose. So, if they can kind of even out those consistencies and pick off an upset or two, I think that 9 or 10 wins in the league will probably, be enough if they have a couple good victories in there. So we'll see what happens. Everybody has a chance at this point in the year. It's just, I think they're a little bit young still, and I want to see a little bit more out of them before I really say that they are a tournament team.
Yeah, and Rob, I've been saying it all year, even before the year started, that it's going to come down to they can beat anybody on any given day, but at the same time they can probably lose to anybody at any given day. And you could say that about most teams, but you really feel that with St. John's. They have the skill, the speed, and the ability to knock down shots against a really good team if they're playing them at home. But at the same time, they can throw up a clunker to a DePaul or San Francisco. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes there. But you mentioned Jakar Sampson and Chris Obekpa. Which of those two do you think is the better NBA talent, and do you think that either of them are going to leave after this season?
I don't know if they're going to leave after this year. I'd say that Obekpa probably has a better chance to have a long NBA career because he does something at an elite level. He's a very, 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 he's one of the best shot blockers in the country, if not the best shot blocker in the country. So I think when you're looking at guys that are kind of, they're not Anthony Davis or Nerlens Noel or someone like that, people that are going to be a top 5 pick, you got to kind of look at someone and say, what does he do really, really well? What can he do to keep him in the league for a couple of years? And I think Obekpa has a better chance of doing that because, he can block shots and he can be a difference maker around them. Obviously, he needs to get better offensively. He needs to become stronger and a better rebounder. But that'll come with time. He's still young, so he'll develop. But he does one thing at an NBA level, and I think that's the biggest thing when looking at prospects.
Talking to Rob Dauster here on Quince in the Morning. He's calling in on the Cocoa Shack hotline, located in Cheshire, Connecticut. The Cocoa Shack. Get all your chocolate goods for the upcoming Christmas season. So, Rob, we move now from the St. John's Red Storm into the conference that they're playing in, the Big East Conference. Obviously, a bit of more of a down year. You have UConn not eligible to participate in postseason play. West Virginia's not here anymore. So, who do you think's the best team right now in the Big East and the team that's probably going to be that top 5, top 10 team throughout the season?
I think Syracuse is the best team in the Big East. Their defense, their zone is just going to be so tough to score on this year. They have so much length. You think about a guy like Michael Carter-Williams playing at the top of the zone. I mean, he's 6'6" with long arms, and he's their point guard. So, it's just with the guys that they have on the wing, like C.J. Fair and James Sutherland, I just think that's a very, very good basketball team. They're balanced. They're going to be a nightmare to go up against in that zone. So, I think the Syracuse is probably the best team. But I really like Louisville as well.
Yeah.
They have some offensive issues. I'm not sure that they have enough three-point shooting. They really, really need Gorgie Jang to come back, just as that presence around the rim, that shot blocker. But, I got to tell you, man, Russ Smith is probably my favorite player in the country to watch. He's just a little guy. He's always got a smile on his face. He can go for 30 on any given night. He can dunk in traffic. I mean, he's just so entertaining to watch. He's probably my favorite player in the country.
Wow. So those are the top teams. What team do you think is going to surprise some people in the Big East that might, make a run maybe at that 3 or 4 spot in the Big East and maybe have a chance to go deep in the Big East tournament?
I think Notre Dame is better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. They're a senior team. They got a couple veteran guards who are really, really good playmakers and really, really good out of ball screen actions, and that's kind of what they do a lot when they get into their burn offense. They like to isolate Jaren Grant and Eric Atkins and kind of let them create off of a Jack Cooley screen. And, they got shooters on the wings that kind of spread the floor. So I think Notre Dame is a lot better than people give them credit for.
Okay, so now moving from the Big East, you have some powers. You have Syracuse, like you said. You have Louisville, and then you said Notre Dame will be moving up. You move now into the national stage, where you have all the conferences. And what's the best team that you've seen play so far this season, the one that you think has the best chance of winning a national title this year?
The debate for the best team in the country really comes down to two teams right now, Indiana or Duke. And I'm of the mindset that Indiana is still the best team. That they were my favorite coming into the season, and they haven't done anything to change my opinion, really. If you want to vote Duke number one because of who they've beaten and what they've done already this season, I have no problem with that. But I'm not going to, until Indiana proves to me that what I saw in the preseason and what I thought of them in the preseason, until something happens that makes me believe that isn't true, then I can't knock them down a spot, just because Duke's been playing really well. And the thing I like about Indiana this year is that they've gotten much, much better defensively. They can their issue last year was they couldn't get a stop when they really, really needed a stop. And this season, with Victor Oladipo getting better offensively, and they can play Yogi Ferrell at the point now, they've become a team that they can be pretty good defensively on the perimeter, and they're going to be a tough team to score against. They have a lot of shooters up and down that roster. Obviously, they have Cody Zeller in the middle, and he commands so much attention that when he gets the ball in the paint, someone has to come double him. And they have so many shooters that it's so difficult to get that double there, still rotate out to everyone, and not give up an open three on the possession. So I really love what that team does. And I'll tell you what, I wish that the ACC Big Ten Challenge had scheduled Duke and Indiana this year, because that would have been a great game.
Absolutely. Can't argue with that. We're talking with Rob Dauster. BallinAsAHabit.net and NBCCollegeBasketballTalk.com is the place if you want to read up on his writing. So, Rob, Indiana's coming from the Big Ten. Is that the best conference this year? Everyone seems to think that it is.
Yeah, and I don't even really think it's all that close. They're just, not only are they the most powerful team at the top, I think in the latest rankings they have 4 of the top 10 teams and maybe 5 of the top 12 or 13 or something like that, depending on where you had Minnesota. So they're powerful at the top, but it's also balanced. Once you get down to like the 8th and the 9th teams, Northwestern went into Baylor and beat Baylor. Iowa is a young team, but they're a team that a lot of people kind of expected to make some noise this season. When you look at them in the preseason, no one really paid attention to Illinois, and all of a sudden that team is 10-0 and in the top 10. And we haven't even mentioned Michigan State, who's not one of the top 5 teams in the rankings. So it's just, there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of power at the top, and they're really, except for maybe like Nebraska, there really isn't like a terrible, terrible team where you just kind of know you're going to get that win every single night. So I think that's going to be a really fun conference to follow all season long, and I don't even think it's close right now with the best league.
Yeah, and they're in the Midwest. We talked about the Big East, moved to the Big Midwest. Let's not exclude the West Coast. What can you say about what's happening at UCLA? Kind of a disappointing start to their season. They had some eligibility problems that they had to work through in the beginning of the season. They lost Josh Smith. He drops out of the program. So what do you think's going on at UCLA, and can they turn this around and make the tournament and make a run in the tournament this year?
I don't think they're going to turn it around. I don't like the way the talent fits together. They don't play defense. It just doesn't look like they're having fun when they're out there. Just next time you watch UCLA play, watch their body language. Watch what Kyle Anderson looks like when he's playing. Watch what Shabazz Muhammad looks like when he's playing. It doesn't look like they enjoy being on the basketball court. And when that happens, it's so tough to win and play hard when you're just not having fun and you're not playing for each other. And also, to be frank, I think that the talent that they kind of brought in was a little bit overstated. I think Shabazz Muhammad he's basically an undersized college power forward that's kind of being forced into a shooting guard role. And, Kyle Anderson, I know he's a local guy for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm not, he's too slow. He's a great talent. I love the way that he can pass. I kind of love what he does out of the high post when they're going up against the zone. I think he's a really effective, kind of face-up four-man, but he's too slow to be a point guard. He's a liability defensively. He can't shoot the ball. He can't get by people off the dribble. So I'm not really sure what kind of role Ben Howland is going to be able to use him in. And the biggest issue with UCLA, beyond anything else, is that Ben Howland has brought in players over the last couple of years that just don't really fit the style and the system that made him successful when he made those 3 straight Final Fours. What made him so good was bringing in guys that were willing to, mix it up defensively, that had no problem playing games that were like 55 to 50. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have that anymore. This UCLA team has to get out and run, and he's not Roy Williams. He's not a guy that's going to be able to coach that team up. So I don't see it happening. I think that things are only going to get worse as they continue to lose. So I mean, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but I kind of saw this coming. I had them ranked 25th in the preseason, and people were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "They're not going to be any good."
Yeah,
and they're not any good.
Do you think that you talked about how the pieces don't fit? And do you think that Ben Howland recently has just, in an effort to kind of save his job, he's just reaching for the best talent he can get without really regards to, putting that team together and fitting his system? Do you think that he's just, really trying to just save his job and be able to say to the AD, "Look, I got all these top prospects. So how can you fire me if I'm recruiting all these guys?" Do you think that that's what's going on right now at UCLA, and that he's kind of written his death sentence now, or his firing sentence?
Well, if they continue to struggle and they don't win this year, I don't know. He's going to be in a lot of trouble when it comes to keeping his job. I think you're right. He started recruiting towards, Scout.com's ratings instead of recruiting towards the players that best fit his system. Mm-hmm. And the thing that makes John Calipari so great at what he does, he convinces all these guys to buy in. Just look at what he did with DeMarcus Cousins. I don't know if you saw the highlights from last night, but DeMarcus Cousins kind of gave O.J. Mayo a little bit of a slap below the belt, and kind of got into it with Mayo and Rick Carlisle, the Dallas head coach, and that's kind of been Cousins' MO throughout his career.
He's been suspended multiple times.
Played with Calipari. John Calipari got DeMarcus Cousins, who has been a nutcase his entire career, to buy in and play hard and do what he needed him to do for Kentucky to make the run that they did. And that's what Calipari does so well. He gets these talents to buy in, even if they're just on campus for 7 months. He gets them to buy in, to go to class, to fake their way through study hall, and do whatever they have to do to be successful and to get themselves drafted, where they can go off and cause all the trouble that they want to do. And I don't think Ben Howland has that ability. I don't think he's the same kind of guy when it comes to convincing elite talents to believe in the program that he's running, and to kind of sit back for 7 months and just write it out, work hard, and then go make your millions. And that's what Calipari is the best in the country at that. And I don't think that. I think Ben Howland kind of looked at what he did and said, "You know what, I can do that." Well, Apparently he can't.
Talking with Rob Dauster of ballinsahabit.net and NBC College Basketball Talk. Rob, one more question for you as you've been dropping all these names here. Obviously, Cody Zeller is probably at the top of everyone's list of draft picks. Nerlens Noel right behind him. But then when you get down to the middle, you kind of lose that name recognition. You're looking at guys like Isaiah Austin, Tony Mitchell, Adonis Thomas. You get down even farther, you get to Alex Len. You get to Ben McLemore. What's one of the players that you think can really improve his stock? What's a dark horse kind of in this NBA draft candidacy of really quality players?
Well, I really, really like Alex Len as an NBA prospect. He's a legitimate 7'1". He's got a nice touch around the basket. He can block shots. He can defend. Another guy to keep a name on, or to keep an eye on, and I'm going to probably butcher this name, but it's Szemik Karnowski, he's a 7'1" kid from Poland who's playing at Gonzaga now. He's coming off the bench for him, but he's huge. He's probably about 275 pounds. He's left-handed. He's really, really good at kind of creating space on the block and sealing and finishing when he's inside. He's got post moves. He moves really well for someone as big as he is. He gets up and down the floor, so keep an eye on him as well.
Okay, Rob, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day, joining us on Quince in the Morning, and hopefully we can have you back next semester when the college basketball season really starts heating up.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Rob Dauster of NBCSportsTalk.com and Ballin' is a Habit. You listen to Quince in the Morning on WSJU Radio.